Hey everybody, in this video we've got a hypothetical matchup between Governor of Illinois J.B. Pritzker for the Democrats up against U.S. Senator from Florida Rick Scott. This is another one suggested to me a while back in the comments. I'm trying to go through most of the reasonable ones I can, so let's try to quickly go through this one. So Pritzker, he won his second term as Governor of Illinois. He does try to have a progressive slant to him, but of course he's straddling the line and trying to not go too far off the deep end. However, him getting rid of cash bail in the state, that I don't think is going to be popular. If he ran on that nationwide, that's something that would help Rick Scott. Now, Rick Scott, I think he has less charisma than Pritzker, and economically, Scott I don't think is going to have a ton of appeal. He's previously been open to the possibility of some sort of cuts to Social Security or Medicare. There's no way he could run on that outside of a GOP primary, but I do have to give Rick Scott all the credit in the world. He won 2 terms as governor of Florida, and he knocked off incumbent Bill Nelson in the blue wave of 2018 in the Senate. You can't take anything away from Rick Scott in those 3 nail-biter elections, but nationally, how much support would that translate into? What kind of campaign would Scott run? Let's go through the states, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end. So first, Alaska. It's going to Scott. I have it at a safe margin. If Pritzker has a great night, he could get it down to likely. Hawaii, safe for Pritzker. The West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California, safe for Pritzker. How about Nevada? I don't see Rick Scott having a ton of appeal here. I think Pritzker wins Clark and Washoe, not by huge margins, but the state is going to go to him probably by a 1 to 2 point lean margin. Idaho, Utah, safe for Scott. How about Arizona? Rick Scott is probably a better fit here than a full-on Trump Republican. When it comes to the border, I think the Democrats are going to struggle in a state like Arizona, so there's a lot of different factors. In the end, I think it would kind of even out, but I'm going to give a very slight advantage to Rick Scott here by a narrow half a point tilt margin. Montana, Wyoming, safe for Scott. Colorado, over 10, safe for Pritzker. New Mexico, likely for Pritzker. North and South Dakota, safe for Scott. Nebraska, at large, safe for Scott. The 2nd District, I don't think Scott is going to excite a lot of suburban voters. I think Pritzker is going to win it by a low single-digit lean margin. Kansas, Oklahoma, safe for Scott. Let's look at Texas. I think all the trends would even out. Scott would still win this by at least 5 points, so likely for Scott. Minnesota, kind of the opposite of Texas. That is going to be likely for Pritzker. Iowa, well, it does border Illinois. I don't think that's going to help Pritzker too much here. It's become a red state, and it's going to go likely for Scott. Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, safe for Scott. Let's go to Wisconsin. That's another state that borders Illinois. I don't think they're going to be too excited about Pritzker, but I think they're going to be a little less excited about Rick Scott. Pritzker is going to win it by a tilt margin. Illinois, of course, very safe for Pritzker. Michigan, that is going to be low single digits, leans for Pritzker. Indiana, safe for Scott. Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, safe for Scott. How about Rick Scott's home state of Florida? He is going to win it. It's going to be by a bigger cushion than he's used to. I'm going to say it's over 5 points, probably not way over, but he's going to get it by a likely margin. One state north to Georgia. Here's a state that could help Rick Scott due to its proximity. So this was a very tough call for me. Crime could be a concern for the Atlanta suburbs. That would derail Pritzker. For Rick Scott, I'm going to say he comes up just short. Pritzker carries it by a tilt margin. South Carolina, safe for Scott. North Carolina, super close, but tilt for Scott. Up to Ohio, that is going to be likely for Scott. West Virginia, safe for Scott. Let's go all the way to Maine at large. That is going to be safe for Pritzker. The 1st District, super safe for Pritzker. The 2nd District, Scott's going to pick it up. He's not going to get the Trump turnout that this district would be looking for, but he's going to get it by a lean margin. New Hampshire, probably over 5, mid-single digits likely for Pritzker. Vermont, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C., safe for Pritzker. Pennsylvania is also going to be similar to Michigan. Scott not going to get the turnout he needs in the deep red counties. Pritzker going to do okay in the suburbs, and he's going to get it by a lean margin. Last state, Virginia, probably another mid-single digit likely margin for Pritzker. So the final map is 292 for Pritzker, 246 for Scott. So like most of these, I think it would be very close. These are 2 super rich guys going at it. Pritzker, the billionaire. Rick Scott, I think, is a step down from that, but he's also extremely wealthy. So these guys would be able to self-fund. I think they would also have the establishment behind them. There'd be all kinds of spending with this race. Scott would absolutely go after Pritzker on crime. He would probably tie him to immigration. Pritzker is going to come out more in favor of labor, protecting Social Security and abortion. He's also going to have a little bit more enthusiasm than Scott. Now, there are some other cultural issues that Scott can tap into. He can push back against some left-wing identity politics, probably some education issues, maybe some overreaches on guns. It's not like Scott has nothing to run on, but when it comes down to it, I think Scott would be outsmarted spent and out-campaigned just enough to lose this election. But if it is a red-leaning environment, then Scott is going to be right back into this thing. Or maybe I completely underestimate Rick Scott. He's no stranger to winning close elections. Maybe Pritzker gets complacent. Maybe the cash bail thing is more of an issue than I think. There's probably other things they could attack each other on. Maybe a significant scandal comes up. It's tough to say, but I had to get this map filled out, and maybe it would change in a couple of weeks, but this is what I settled on right now. So let me know in the comments. Do you mostly agree with this map, or would you flip a ton of these states like Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, North Carolina? Let me know how right or wrong I got this down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.